They'd spoken to beings beyond your stars before. They thought they understood the rules. By 1946, Division 13 had already engaged in limited secretive contact with off-world entities. Their mission was to monitor anomalous phenomena and maintain control over anything that threatened the global order. Operating decades ahead of public understanding, they had quietly developed rudimentary orbital capabilities. That year, a signal was intercepted from low Earth orbit, structured, rhythmic, and unmistakably intelligent. Assuming it to be from an alien craft, Division 13 launched a covert mission. The flight was unacknowledged, the crew nameless, the airspace cleared and forgotten before the engines cooled. They believed they were intercepting an alien craft.
Visual lock confirmed on the target object.
That this would be their first true recovery, something to justify the years of silence, the funding, the fear. But the object they pulled from the sky was an alien.
Trajectory is stable, no thermal or propulsion signatures detected. Object is rotating, slowly, irregular pattern. Picking up low-frequency resonance on band 9. Running diagnostics now. Standing by for retrieval vector confirmation. Over.
It was older than your rockets, older than your wars, and somehow, it was human. The object was retrieved and loaded onto a classified re-entry vehicle.
Control. The object just emitted a low-frequency probe. Repeat. We have resonance.
Re-entry was calculated to the second. Altitude, velocity, thermal profile, everything accounted for, except what they'd brought on board.
Control. This is Echo Transport. Systems are failing. Containment field is destabilizing. We've got interference from... The core is active. Repeat. The core is...
At first, it sounded like static. Then the instruments began rewriting themselves. Systems failed. Pressure sealed too late, and then silence. What remained of the craft came down in a remote sector of New Mexico, scorched, fragmented, but not beyond recovery. When Division 13 reached the site, the hull was broken, the satellite intact and still pulsing. It wasn't the first time the world had seen too much, but it was the first time Division 13 had to move this fast. They arrived before the first news report, before the rancher could even decide what he'd seen. Within hours, the site was sealed, the perimeter expanded. Roads vanished beneath black tents and dead-end signage. Witnesses were questioned, then silenced. Deputies reassigned. Film stock confiscated. The official term was contingency containment, but for Division 13, it was just Tuesday. At first, they told at least some version of the truth. A flying disc, recovered intact. But the truth lingered too close to questions they couldn't afford. So within a single news cycle, a saucer became a mistake became a story, and the story became a joke. The public needed an answer. Something they could fold, tape, and tuck into their back pocket. So they gave them a balloon. Just enough truth to erase the actual story. A crash, a retrieval, and a satellite that didn't belong to any nation on Earth. Testimony rewritten. Memories suppressed. They blamed panic, weather, imagination.
I've never seen nothing like it before. Looked like a wing, maybe, but it was glowing, kind of.
They didn't just change the narrative. They manufactured one. But under the tarps, nothing was weather-related. The object wasn't just intact. It was awake. They didn't just bury what they found. They buried the question, how did something from your world end up beyond it? Roswell wasn't the beginning. It wasn't even the event. It was the rewrite. The first successful myth.
He still remembers. We'll need to adjust again.
They expected debris. They found design, too precise to be accidental. It wasn't made of alloys or circuits. No propulsion. It functioned differently. A crystalline nervous system built to resonate, not compute. The symbols weren't alien. They were human. Tartarian, not just in structure, but in signal. It wasn't blueprints etched in stone or symbols painted on walls. It was language, a pattern of tones and frequencies designed to be felt, not read. A voice carried on vibration, meant to outlast memory and speak across time. When I heard it, I recognized the architecture, not just Tartarian, Cyridonian. The harmonic intervals, the crystalline inlays, the pulse rate of the core. It mirrored the archival transmitters of my world, the same resonance fields we once used to store history, consciousness, memory itself. This wasn't a signal, not a beacon, but a breadcrumb, left behind for the descendants of something older than they knew. Left drifting in orbit, not to contact something, but to remind something, and that something was you. I began translating the resonance patterns. They weren't words, not in the way you know them. They were impressions, tones that carried intent, color, emotional direction. One pulse conveyed longing, not desperation, not grief, but a gentle ache stretched across centuries. The kind of signal a civilization sends when it no longer knows if anyone will answer. Another carried warning, sharper, denser. It shimmered like glass under tension. A vibration meant to unsettle, to alert, not frighten. As if the satellite remembered something, and needed you to remember it too. It remembered the silence that followed collapse, the fracture between knowledge and power, a moment when a civilization reached farther than it was ready to hold, and paid for it in ash and forgetting. This was not a warning of war, but of erosion, of how memory fades when it's no longer shared, of how truth can be buried, not just by others, but by time itself. The pulse didn't say run, it said, look again, at your past, at what you almost became, but hidden deeper were star maps, coordinates, not just to places but moments, a recorded alignment, celestial, historical, maybe even biological, as if the satellite wasn't just tracking time, but preserving when something changed. Some of the sequences matched fragments from Cyridonian memory archives. I don't know if Tartaria copied us, contacted us, or was us, but the satellite wasn't drifting, it was waiting. How did they build this? That's the question Division 13 kept circling, but never dared to ask out loud. Because if Tartaria made it, then they weren't just advanced, they were aware of what lay beyond Earth, of who else was listening. The resonance tech, the crystalline architecture. These weren't primitive attempts, they were precise, familiar, designed not to persuade but preserve. I've seen similar patterns before, in ruined memory vaults, collapsed sky nodes. So either Tartaria made contact or Tartaria remembered. And that frightened Division 13, because this wasn't alien and it wasn't foreign. It was yours, and it had come back.